There was a question on Reddit. I don't have a Reddit account because every time I try to set up one, they say we don't like you. Reddit has developed a personality issue. What's the federal limit for an unlicensed individual for possessing black powder? According to some, citation needed, 50 pounds. What's the biggest gun you can legally own? The widest diameter is the internal diameter of your big gun you're building. The projectile has to be based on how much mass, maximum, whatever material you're firing, whether it's giblets or lead, with your 50-pound bag. Yeah, you're allowed to build a gun that can fire upwards of 50 pounds of gunpowder or black powder. Smokeless powder doesn't have the same limits. It's a different set of rules. Or not. I'm not a lawyer. Your area will have different rules and laws. And yeah, virtually everywhere in the United States, you're allowed to own a cannon. There aren't any limits as long as it's loaded without a cartridge. The cartridge is the physical object that connects or combines the projectiles or projectile, propellant, and primer. The primer is the initiating or detonating device. The propellant propels it. It should not be an explosive. Although pistol propellant gets really close to that, it's not an explosive. Shotgun propellant is usually slower burning, less like an explosion. And then finally, the projectiles. If any one of these three is missing, an argument can be made that it isn't ammunition or components to make ammunition, but usually it is. Regulations applied to a $37 billion industry employing over almost a quarter million people in the United States, based on the following assertions collected over the years as a snapshot of the regulation ideals. Police and military-style shooting competitions, like three-gun, are not sporting activities. Therefore, anything specifically designed for them can't have a sporting exemption if you bring it up. But cowboy western shooting, which is just three-gun wearing costumes, or reenactments, which is basically playing airsoft with real guns, they're considered sporting. Having a gun with blued metal and Turkish walnut and looking traditional, that's a sporting usage. For hunting, skeet, and trap shooting. And target shooting, they're sporting. But if it's a black on black gun, it's subject to restrictions. And yes, someone trolled the living shit out of the ATF by providing them two absolutely identical guns through two different LLCs that had applied for the right to legally start marketing guns in the United States. And said, we made these, and they decided the one that was painted different, even though they're absolutely identical, they were in the same building at the same time with the same people looking at them. Well, that black one, that looks tactical. FUD confirmed. Also, I should point out that in the United States, it's legal for everybody in the United States to make their own gun. You're just not supposed to make it for the purpose of selling it. If you are, you contact the ATF and say, yeah, I want to be a gun maker or a gunsmith, and I'd like to make these and sell them commercially. And they say, okay, there's a tax for it per year and per number of thousand units, and you have to follow all these rules, and you have to pay us money so that we can make sure that we, because we have to show up and do a spot check once in a while. It's kind of bullcrap, but that's how it is. If you're just doing a repair shop job, it's probably a lot less. But if you just want to make one yourself, that's fine, but that means that the only kind you can usually make is something that looks like out of a video game like Rust or Fallout. It ends up being a couple of black pipes, one chambered within the other with a fixed firing pin in the back that you'll notice on just about every YouTube video, they leave out that you have to eliminate all dead space around the firing pin. Some of them talk about it, and YouTube and Google selectively try to flag the videos that tell you how not to hurt yourself. So it's not about safety, it's about you being informed. They don't want that. The they I'm referring to is whoever the hell is making these dumbass decisions. There are a lot of old 6 and 8 bore elephant guns that are called rifles. They're basically rifled-barreled, old-school type shotguns. You can copy any of the designs that have ever been approved for sporting usage for any reason, willy-nilly. If you try to sell them, the ATF might go all helter-skelter on you and decide you can't. With a proper permit anywhere from $5 to $200. You too can own anything. Nothing is actually illegal. You just have to pay a tax on it. The idea was to make a high barrier for entry in the 1930s, but these days it's only $200 and most people don't give a shit. And yes, I'll make an all-metal double-barrel flare gun or own one from the Nazi Germany had one, but I can make one myself, obviously. It would be cheaper. The entire cost of it would be that $200 permit for a destructive device, even though it's just a 12-gauge pistol. And legally, I could start off making it as a muzzle-loading flare gun that I could then cut off, not the barrels and short barrel it, but cut off the breech plugs and make a breech loader. You're also allowed to own any reproductions of anything that was exclusively used in military usage, because at one time they decided only military weapons were legal. And this is the group of people that's supposed to be regulating this shit. Meanwhile, you can build literally a hell cannon that uses 50 pounds of gunpowder, and they're not going to complain. Because there's an exemption for that, but there's no exemption for me making basically a paintball gun that uses gunpowder, because I don't want to use air tanks. I want a self-defense gun that's so weak that it would be considered a toy, but I want it to be able to shoot something that if somebody gets really close to me, I can hit them with a paintball loaded with mace and have it actually hurt a little bit so they'll stop, to stun them. I don't need a gun that kills anybody. I just need enough time to get the hell out of there. But no, self-defense is literally one of the few things that you can legally use as a justification for someone dropping dead. But it's not an excuse for you to make a gun specifically for that purpose. It can't be for self-defense purposes. All because the ATF has FUDs running everything? I'm not sure. Any shotgun using fixed ammunition, projectile, propellant, and primer with a bore greater than half an inch could be considered a destructive device, except by gauge or cartridge type. It is found by the Attorney General of the United States or the Secretary or his delegate as generally recognized as particularly suitable for sporting purposes exemption as shotguns or shotgun shells. But people then went ahead and designed overbore 90 caliber bullet based guns, and they're totally legal. Because Cape Buffalo, it's a T-Rex gun. If an 8 or 4 gauge punt gun was legal somewhere for hunting, maybe it would be legal on a federal level. But they're not allowed. They're no longer legal for commercial hunting of migratory birds like ducks. They're perfectly legal for anything you want to. Some states actually make a rule against it. But their main usage now for the 2 and 4 and 8 gauge and that sort of thing are used for industrial kiln guns and other special purpose things, throwing lines, flare guns, and other safety equipment. And also, in case you haven't noticed from all the ruckus going on, rubber bullet guns to hit people with, because that's totally acceptable. 4-bore rifles and 4-gauge shotguns produce such absurd amounts of energy that they are unsafe to fire repeatedly due to the biological limits and the strength of the human physiology and skeleton. These shotguns generally produced 100 foot-pounds of free recoil. You can look under hunting with artillery section for a cannon not being legal for any species of game hunting in Wisconsin. However, hunting white-tailed deer with a 12-pound mountain howitzer cannon, which is what it's called, firing 140 12-gauge slugs is legal using half a pound of gunpowder. Just wanted to point that out. The rest of the video is going to be pretty short because I just got a warning from my battery. Half-inch intermediate metallic conduit is about the same size as a shotgun shell and can be skinnied down to where it'll fit into a shotgun as a blank to make a shotgun shell. You can also use a similar thing of plastic so you can make toy shotgun shells and that sort of thing. One of the things people forget about is that shotgun shells originally were paper hulls. Originally, shotguns were just converted muzzle loaders where they cut off the breech end and made it to where they could access it, open it, put in a cartridge, close it up, and have a primer jammed in a hole to set it all off. The gun took the pressure. Even shotgun shells today, and all cartridges, are designed to tolerate pretty minimal amounts of pressure. The more you're relying on the cartridge, the less you seem to be relying on the gun being well built. It should be pointed out that you can still make paper cartridges by looking up old methods for doing it, and the information isn't impossible to find. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is somebody on Reddit wanted to know if he could build a 4-gauge shotgun, and someone said you can't get ammunition for it. They were originally paper tubes. I did that in another video. But I wanted to point out that if you study how people make them for paper craft toy guns, it's the same procedure. Anyway, that's all I got for the video. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And yeah, this is kind of a rant and a bunch of stuff I looked up.